Hello everyone and welcome. In this video, we'll be talking about collection types. Now, what are collection types? These are for managing dynamic data structures in intelligent smart contracts. Now, we have a few collection types in GenLayer, like the dynamic array and the tree map. So the dynamic array is basically just a superset of Python's lists, and the tree map is a superset of the dictionary. Now you cannot normally use you cannot use the list or the dictionary when you're writing GenLayer smart contracts. You can only make use of the dynamic array and the tree map. Now let's get into the code. Let me just quickly copy the important things I need and paste it here. Then we define our class. Let's call this collect, and it inherits from the gl.contract namespace. So first we are going to do the dynamic array. So we are going to define, let's call this nums. We define the dynamic array by saying dyn array, and we define the type that will be contained in the dynamic array. Let us say string type, or let us say U256. Yes. Now we define the initialization dunder method. So let's just define an array in this. Let's say nums. Let's add some numbers to this code. Dot append. If you notice, I did not follow up with the self, so I just added the self now in front, and we add the number we want to append. Let's say 5. Let's do the same thing again. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So this append, as you all know, is a keyword for normal Python lists, which just adds the number to the last element of the list. Now we are going to define a function to return the dynamic array information. So we can say, let us get the length of the dynamic array. Let us say get len, place self. And then we return self dot nums. Now instead of calling the len function on this, what we do is we wrap it in len, and then we also wrap it again, because we are going to, this length is going to be an unsigned integer of 256, so we also wrap it in that, and we have defined the return data as 256. Yeah, and we forgot one important part of this code, to define the decorator that tells us if this is a public method or a private method. Next, let us define a method that will remove the last item. So we do that by saying gl.public.write. This means that this method can modify the contract state. And then we say remove item. Let us say remove last item. So how do we do this? We say since dynamic arrays are a superset of Python's lists, so we just call self.numbers dot nums dot pop, and this will pop the last item in the list. Now, to make sure our code will not break, we are going to pass an asset function to make sure that if the length of nums is less than is greater than 0. So this line just says if so what this asset statement does, it compares this variable, and if it returns false, it crashes the program and returns an error statement. Now let's define a function to get the index of the number. So say gl dot public dot view, because this is a read-only function. Then we define, let's say, get num at, we say self, and we pass in the index as an integer. You can see the logs are screaming that there's an error in the code, but when we are done, it will resolve itself. Then we just return self dot nums at the index, and we are good. Hopefully this program will not crash. Now this is for the dynamic arrays. So I'm going to quickly go and compile this code. So just quickly, before we deploy, I just added a function that will return this list of this dynamic array, sorry, not the list. So you can just quickly copy and paste or write this function. So what it does, it just returns the array of nums. So as I've deployed, let me deploy the contract. So the contract has been deployed successfully. We can now call the function. We can call the get length. This will return the length, which is 5. We can call the get num at, let us get the third number in the index. You can see return 2. We can call the return nums method, which returns the entire array, and you can see the third number is 2, 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. Now we can call the remove last item. So it seems that the return last item method is taking time. I think there's an issue on the app's end, but ideally if we are to run this method, it will pop the last item in this list. Okay, which it already has. You can see I called the method and it has popped number 1. So it's remaining 5, 4, 3, 2. So this was just a brief summary of dynamic arrays in GenLayer. Thank you.